Welcome back for another project, because sometimes you just can't help yourself. And I apologize for the background noise. They're building a house next door, so I really pity the people that buy a house within 100 feet of my shop. Anyway, this is my wife's 1952 International pickup truck. The title says L122, which I think makes it a 1-ton? I don't know. You are looking at it as I got it. We just took the hood off of it because they had put some gate hinges on it and it didn't open. I haven't done anything to this truck besides wash it and chase the snakes and the mice out of it. It looks like somebody started some kind of restoration effort. I think bodywork wise it's in a lot better shape. A couple of spots here and there, but otherwise it's pretty good. And it is put on a 1964 C10 Chevrolet truck frame. And you can get an idea of just how big these International trucks were, because if you look down here, here is the original factory core support for the Chevy. And look how much further out the front end has come. So, looks like we got a lot of room here. A little bit of hackery to deal with there on the motor mounts. The first priority here is getting a plan together. I got an LS that came out of a Suburban. I think it's an LQ4. So we want to test fit it. We want to get these fenders off so we can find out what's going on back there. I do know I'm not super happy with the way they did the body mounts, so I kind of want to see if I can make that a little better. And interestingly, we started pulling off some of the J.C. Whitney glue-on trim from this drip edge. And by the way, look how nice this factory drip edge is. We're pretty sure this maroon is the original color for this truck. And I think, looking at the roof, that's just the sun faded version, and this is really hard. So it looks like whoever was doing the body work got to about above the belt line and quit, because if you look here, you can see hopefully it's showing up on camera, that hasn't been dug out and sanded yet. So my guess is they started it, got bored with it, got beyond their ability. I don't know. More what I think is the original paint. The wiring is a disaster. So that's going to be a total gut job. And you should be thankful we don't have smell-o-vision yet, because it is ripe. Seat's in good shape. Unfortunately, while it was in storage at my place, I think the mice got into the headliner, so that's unfortunate. That was a beautiful button tuck headliner originally. Somebody put a steering column out of a Chevy truck in it, and yeah, my wife wants a manual in her truck, so we're going to have to redo some of this anyway. The frame's pretty clean. I'm not super thrilled with the sort of 90s gasser look that we got going on here, but yeah, first order of business, we're going to start stripping it down here, get a plan together, and get some parts ordered. Well, been a few days. I ended up going on vacation for a bit, and the first thing I couldn't help but notice is that my snake charming ability was not quite good enough. That was not there when I left. So yeah, we still got a passenger. We went ahead and ripped out the badly made Ford small block motor mounts. Not impressed. And I scrounged up out of the shed what I think is an LQ4. It might only be a 5.3. It came out of a Suburban. It did run. So, yeah. Small block Chevy it is. It's a Chevy frame, you know. So we dropped it in, and it fits quite nice. But the problem is, it was all cattywampus. We didn't have a real good perch on it, and it almost fell twice. So I put it on the stand, First order of business here is going to be to rip all the wiring off of it, label everything, get the intake manifold off, find something I can put my lift hook on top. I don't know, you Chevy guys, you tell me. It's the first one I've torn into. Where's the lifting eyes? I guess I'm just used to Fords breaking down all the time. The motors are real easy to pull. The other thing I want to do, where did it go? There it is get these 265 7017s on it. They're a little bit smaller tire than what's on it, but they are 6-on-6 and a 6-on-6, I think. Is that what Chevys are? They came off a Chevy truck, so I think they're the same. These drag radials are in terrible shape. They're not holding air. They're hanging off the lift. I may have to actually scoot the truck over. The back spacing is wrong. They have the wrong lug nuts in a couple of places for those mag style wheels, so it's a whole lot safer. They're dry rotted real bad. And then I'm gonna get the running boards off. I was gonna take, yeah, I was afraid of that. There is goo in there. I was gonna take the bed off, the fenders off the bed, but they're actually pretty solid, so I think I'm just gonna leave them. Oh, that one does have its brace on it. The other side does not have a brace connected. Big problem we discovered the other day is the bed is, oh yeah, you see right there? Yeah. The bed is really cattywampus, and everything was stretched on this side almost an inch. And I got tears in fenders, I got tears in running boards, so better just to take it apart. I'll have to try to repair that. And yeah, you can follow along here. Okay, so not exactly the right bolt pattern and completely the wrong kind of studs, but visually I think that's substantially better. So let me go through the one on the other side, and this axle's not very well centered, and I think I'm going to let it down. I need to put some air in these tires. I deflated them when I took them off the other truck, but visually I don't know. I think I'm liking the 17s. I gotta see what the boss says when she gets home. Let's let it down and see what it looks like. I like it. Needs, I don't know, about an inch. More back spacing, less back spacing. I don't know how to measure tires. Got about 10 inches to the outside here. And got about 13 inches of well there. Let's see what the other side looks like. different. A little more than 10, a little more than 13. This side feels like it's tucked up in tighter. It would not surprise me to learn, almost like springs are bad. So I got 34 there, 32 on this side. So yeah, this far side's 2 inches lower. Probably the springs are bad. So you're looking at the better side. And yeah, it would rub on the inner fender. It's rolling, it's turning now, but it would rub if there was any sidewall movement. And I don't even hate the drum coming through the snowflake. I'd probably want to get, I got to get different rims anyway. I really just wanted to see the size of the tire in the wheel. But I like it. I like that a whole lot better. Alright, I'm going to get the running boards off. And I'm probably going to have to go ahead and take the fenders off. I showed you the damage on the other side. Well, we got the fenders off and the running boards. I'll walk out in the barn here in a minute. Bed bolts are out. It looks like it's nothing but a carriage bolt solution. Go through and knock all the rest of these bolts out. I think this scaly stuff is just really old undercoating or truck bed liner. Wire wheel will clean it up. Bed sides are pretty decent. I don't know if some of the little pops are coming through on camera. There is a lot of kind of nastiness down in this rail here where my finger is. We're probably just gonna have to live with that because there's no good way to repair it without just filling the whole thing with mud, which I don't want to do that because then we're going to lose this detail here. As you can see, tires are a little close. So yeah, we'll need another inch or two of offset there. Got a little whiskey dent here. This is actually the worst one on the truck that I've found so far. More of the sort of scale here, but it doesn't really detract from the panel. And I think if I clean this up back here, we'll be pretty well golden. Do have some rust holes here they never repaired. And right here you can see there's some softness. So I'll have to see if we can do something about that. So today's project is to get the bed off so I can get it on my cart and I can get in here and start doing something about these cab mounts. I'm not real happy with the way they did this. They got this one's loose even though the bed's setting on it, so that's great. Lift blocks in there. And they made up these, yeah, that's what I was afraid of. There's no rubber isolator on the bottom. So that's just gonna break, especially with such a small bolt. So we'll see if we can do something about that. But that's how she goes. I think the bed's loose. Should come right up. Probably got some wiring harness somewhere I'll have to cut. I think they were trying to salvage the 64 harness, but I'm not so inclined. So we'll set you where you can watch here. Had to modify my base a little bit here, but I should be able to get that bed on it safely. And there we are. Now to roll it over in a corner and pile parts on it. All right, got it pretty much torn down to where I can roll it back outside and start wire wheeling stuff. Got to get this steering column out because I don't know if it's coming through on camera, but these welds are horrendous. And I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to bolt the slip part. Anyway, I've also been working on getting the interior cleaned out. Got a lot of the mouse P mat out. Weirdly, there were carriage bolts holding in the firewall insulation. Being that this is a much older truck, I doubt I'm going to be able to get a form-fitted firewall piece. So we'll probably be dynamatting that. But you can... I didn't film the hackery that was the wiring in this truck, but I don't think there was a single wire that hadn't been wire nutted, spliced, fused, switches. I did remove the god-awful radio. Nice of them to absolutely wreck the dash to put it in. Some people. Anyway, I will get it cleaned up. You can sit here and watch as I struggle to remove this steering column. Oh, all right. There we go. Is that one in? Yeah, okay. Wait for the clang. Clang. Is this the part where I find out the one bolt that I left in is not sufficient to hold it, but will not easily become disconnected? Wait for it. Okay. I don't plan on reusing this column. It is in pretty sad shape, but there is no sense and just throwing it away. I will put it in my parts pile. But I can see there's been a not insignificant amount of hackery to get this in here. Become disconnected. I did salvage the GM wiring harness interconnect there. Remove this janky brake pedal return spring, which probably wasn't doing a whole lot. Okay, that's disconnected. Oh yeah, a million butt connectors that don't have any heat shrink on them. I'm sure those aren't loose. We'll just do all the wiring in red. The good news is the vent works, so that's pretty neat. Okay, here, what do we got left? Got a brake pedal that doesn't do anything. All right, what? So now, have to, yep, that's all disconnected. Come over here and find a place to take this monster apart. Well, now I understand why the throttle pedal is at a weird angle. It's just randomly bolted to the firewall. Let's see what happens. And are those metric? There you are. Friends don't let friends do that to accelerator pedals. Hello, welcome back. Maybe this is the same video, I don't know. It's been over a week and I have no idea where I left off. I also have a head cold, so apologies if you hear me making noises. And it is redonkulously hot today, so I have the big exhaust fan running, and that's probably the noise you're hearing. Hopefully the camera's not picking it up. We ended up stripping it all the way down. I'll show you why. And I'm glad I did, because a lot of bolts were finger tight, stuff wasn't real torqued, we're missing bolts. And the reason we took it all the way down was the cab mounts were just terribly unsafe. And what they had done was they had this thing sitting in here, and they just had a bolt run down through it. And I don't know if the camera's gonna pick up how badly bent that bolt actually is. And so they didn't have any movement. They had these pieces of body isolator, but this is solid metal. I think it's actually aluminum. And so what happened was it bent the top flange of the frame rail, because in order for body mounts to work, you have to have the rubber on the top and the bottom, and the hole has to be quite large. If the hole's the same diameter as the bolt, you're just putting a moment load on the bolt, and you don't want to do that. So we cut the factory C10 mount off, trimmed it, raised it up, and welded it in. Now, I wouldn't normally advocate for welding to a frame rail, but this isn't a truck that's gonna see any kind of load. And what I want to do today, you can see I've got some overhang here. I want to make a filler piece to come down and actually put the load back on the web of the frame rail where it's supposed to be. Otherwise, I risk doing this to my mounts as well. Now, I have a lot more purchase because I spread it out with the weld, but still, no point in halving it at this point. And these are factory C10 mounts, by the way, so that actually worked out pretty nice. Gutted the interior completely, and the mouse house was just, I actually didn't clean it up because I wanted to film it for you. Maybe you could see it. There's a good 6 inches of mouse house there. So yeah, that was gross. And in the process, discovered that the firewall had not been treated kindly. So second major safety issue, if there's big chunks of firewall missing, please patch those. The whole point is if something happens, you know, like a fire, that you have this metal between you and the engine bay. And when you cut these gigantic holes, and I would love to know why there's one on the passenger side, it completely defeats the purpose. Now up here, it's not so bad. These are all factory holes. I don't know what for. These were the heater core, so I'm not sure what all this up here is. So I'm gonna go ahead and just cover them up for safety's sake. And then I want to address these front frame mounts. You can see this bolt is not even tight. And the other issue is they have these 2 bolts that are longitudinal, and that doesn't give you any moment reaction. So if the frame or the cab flex, which they will, it's just gonna break these bolts. You need a 3rd one down here to create an actual pattern. I also don't know, it doesn't, no, they did not. I can see it already. The hole is the same size as the bolt, and we don't have any isolator on the bottom, so we have the same problem up front. But I'll probably reuse these. I'll just drill another hole and elongate the top. So that's where we're at. Like I said, it's hot. I'm sick, but I got the day off of work, and that means more work, apparently. So we'll get to it here, and I'm probably gonna start with this. I'll bring you back when those are cleaned up. I'm gonna have to go buy a ton of bolts. All right, so I made these up out of 1/4 inch plate. Just free-handed them with the plasma cutter. They did not need to be 1/4 inch plate. They're going on 1/8 or 3/16, but 1/4 is what I had. So I went ahead and burned in the first one just to give you an idea what it's gonna look like. And while I am certainly not a professional welder, nor do I make any claim to, underneath the cab, welding out of position, I would say, not teabag. That top one's welding by braille, so, I mean, look at that stack of dimes, would you? I got my eyeball in now. The first one was a little uglier. Took me a little bit to get my eye in. So hopefully here we can prep the next one. Maybe let you watch. Gotta have the camera and a light. Cab puts it in the shade, and as soon as I go to flip my welding hood down, I can't see anything. Whoops, we got some. There we go. How much is that kicking it out? Ooh. All right, hold on. I gotta take a little nibble off this. All right, that's a little better. burn it in. Oh, that's a lot stronger. I like that. Actually, I'm kind of glad I ended up using the 1/4 inch. That really beefs it up. So these aren't tight yet. I threw a bunch of water on it to keep the heat out of my brand new body mounts. I think they're okay. It quit smoking. The smoke was this stupid spray-on bed liner that was on the frame. Stuff burns pretty easy. But once it gets going, you got to get it out in a hurry or you're going to have a problem. So here's the other side. Not the prettiest welds, but it's hard to get to. A lot of it's weld by braille. Kind of just reaching back in and guessing, so I'm pretty happy with that. It's a lot better than it was. Well, I thought the fronts were going to be easier. I was just going to take it apart, egg out that hole with the torch, and put it back together. But what I discovered when I actually got in here was that they did not put the bolt in the actual factory location. They cut a hole in the floor pan and moved it over here about 2 inches or so. And I think it'll actually drop if I get it exactly the right location. There, you can feel it. The problem is you don't want to just pull on that channel. You actually want to spread the load out with the big washer, and I'll have to make a bigger one, onto your floor pan, which if you look is how the back is done. And I mean, I've only done this a few times, but every time that is typically what you'll see. Now in some of the newer vehicles, you'll see this recessed into the floor right here, but you don't want to be pulling on just this piece of channel down here. And I think you can maybe even see it's not in great shape anyway. So I'm gonna have to figure out what I'm gonna do here. I love starting over. Alright, so here's what I came up with. There's actually a factory hole there. I don't understand why they drilled that extra hole. And if you look, I'm actually getting pretty good bite on everything up here to suck it down together. And I went and dug around my shelf and I found these frame savers for a Ford, but they are exactly the right locating diameter. That'll suck in real nice and let the rubber do its thing. So I'm just gonna cut that, weld these in. Should be plenty strong enough. So here's what I came up with. I haven't got the cab down all the way yet. You can see I just welded in the frame savers there. Got everything centered up nice. So what I'll probably do is torque up one side and then let it down and guide the other side. Alright, everything's tight. I went ahead and welded them right to the frame. Figure the rear ones are welded, the bolts were just to line them back up. But everything's tight now. We got nice cab mounts, so whew, it is hot. I think I'm done for the day. Alright, let's try this again. So I shot that video. I had a really ugly gap here. I did grind it down. It's fine. I probably need to go on the inside and burn it before I grind it the rest of the way. Otherwise, there might not be any strength left in it. But I thought I would try again to film it. Not a body man. And so I have a piece mocked up here in this other hole. I have a little screw in it. I think you can see, so I can move it around. I have it really nice down here at the bottom. I got it lined up where I want it. It's tall on top. We'll fix that, don't worry. So what I'm gonna do is put a couple tacks on it to hold it. And right here it's shallow, so I'm gonna have to go inside and give it a little heat and beat. But let me get a tack in this corner and I think you'll see how this process should have worked last time. The other thing is I had some problems with the welder. The wire wasn't advancing when you hit the button. So I just broke down and bought a new whip. I got a 15-footer this time. These Eastwoods are a little tough to get parts for. So I don't know if you can make it out there if you have one. Oh, there's the part number. Seems to be a good fit. You do have to change the connector out for your Eastwood connector. And I also bought a new welding hood. It wasn't flashing, Not this one. This is just an expensive Eastwood. It wasn't flashing. Sorry, I'm getting the string off of it. And I was getting flash burned a bunch. And once you do that, I mean, there's no permanent damage, but you can't see for 10 minutes, and it gets really frustrating. So let's see if those improvements help, and we'll try this again. You know, I could probably turn that water sheet down. Now that it's actually doing. Oh yeah, the camera's rolling. Well, holy crap, what a difference. I think that other whip must have been breaking down inside, because the wire feeding is so much smoother now. I can actually turn the speed down a little bit. All right, so what I need to do in this lower right corner is try to get that lined up just a hair better. See if we can give it a little convincing here. Ideally, I would have just pushed it proud. Of course, if you're putting body filler on it, you know, it wouldn't be nearly as big a deal. I don't intend to put body filler on my firewall. I'm no expert on MIG welding, but that felt really nice. All right, now, it's still shallow on top because it's lapped inside. So what we're gonna do, my little grinder here, we're just gonna go around and open it up a little bit to get that to set down inside. And it's okay because actually, in an ideal world, as I understand it, about a 1/16 of an inch is good because it gives the weld somewhere to live and you don't end up with it built up on top quite so much. The other thing I noticed about this new whip, the trigger pull is much easier, which will be good for doing stick welding, or stitch welding, I mean. And you're just bumping it a little bit at a time. You can see how clean you get it that way. You do get a little overcut, but you can just weld that over. I got to fill these holes anyway. So now all we do is take our screw, just bend it out where it wants to be. Just like that. For these sort of oddball shaped holes where you don't really know what size it is or you can't buy patch panels, this is the way I like to do it. I don't know, maybe there's a better way, but this is how I've done a couple times now. Gutsy. That sound you heard was my magnets hit before. But I think that gives you a really nice fit up. And like I said, if you were doing this on a body panel, which I'll be doing some doors here in a minute, you're a lot closer, so you don't end up with nearly as much filler. Of course, you got to grind the welds down anyway, but with that little bit of gap, you can see you get a nice little space for it to live, and you don't have as much. Like, here's going to be a problem. This is going to try to buckle if I get too much heat in it, because there's nowhere for that panel to expand to. So I don't know, not a pro, but this seems to work for me. So tips and suggestions are always welcome. I'm gonna get it welded in the rest of the way and then grind it off, and I'll show you the finished product. Well, I don't know if it's the helmet or the whip. It certainly isn't skill, but that's probably the nicest I've ever laid down stitch welds. Threw a bolt in that hole and welded it in. I'll cut it off. But yeah, what an improvement. There you go. Ready for body filler if I felt so inclined. I think I need to be careful here. I might have accidentally burned through the weld. That's what happens when you don't give it any place to live. So it doesn't get down in, and probably that didn't penetrate very well. So I'm gonna open that up a little bit, weld it, grind it, call it a day. So herein lies the next problem. This is junk. And it leads me to wonder, how many other places do I have 1/8 of an inch of Bondo that clearly was not rated for bare metal contact based on the amount of corrosion behind it? So I'm gonna get in here with the grinder, cut off wheel. I'd like to get my vertical seam over here so it's in the fender well. And then I'll have to see if I can. Yeah, the problem is it's a double layer and the whole thing's loose. And there's a ton of stuff in here. All right, let me do some exploring. Well, after some excavation, I have found what I thought would be the case. So there's an extra panel that they just screwed on. You can see it moving there. And what I'm gonna have to do is take my little cutter, come down in here and clean all this crap out so I can get these screw heads out, because the screw heads, they ended up with like almost 1/4 inch of Bondo in places. And that's a problem. And you can see where it didn't adhere very well to the original metal. And that's why you have all this scarring. And what happened is this whole thing moves because they never put any structure back into it. And because the whole thing moves, it just cracked right down this Bondo line right here. And I'm guessing I'm gonna find the same thing on the other side. But my God, tell me you don't know how to do body work without telling me you don't know how to do body work. You should never, never have more than 1/16 of an inch of Bondo. If you're putting more than that in, stop. You need more substrate. Now, I know a lot of people like the short strand fiber. I don't have any experience with that. I like to put metal in, but you need something. You have to have some structure or it's just gonna flex and crack. And that's exactly what happened here. So let me get my little cutoff wheel and I'll clean this up. And what I'll do is I'll take these screws out, dig down into there. I don't care about up in here. This is inside the fender. It can be a little ugly. This is all that shows, and that's what they were trying to clean up. But since there was no structure, it just fell apart. So I'm gonna see if I can get these screws out and probably just go ahead and cut it right here where they lapped it. The good news is I did find bare metal. I could found clean metal over here. So what they had done was probably beat this in so that there was somewhere for the screw heads to live. And that's a shame because, you know, 15 minutes with a welder, you could have spot welded this piece on. That would have been fine. But these big screw heads, it just, somebody's been watching too much Roadkill. This is not a way to do it that's gonna last more than a couple years. because as soon as you get any moisture in here, it's just gonna pop that Bondo right off. Now, I've been chasing it up here. This is thin, it's well adhered, it's coming off hard, so that's a good sign that this is fine. They did put the gel coat in, the skim coat in, so that's good. And it's not real thick here at the door latch, so I think I can salvage it. It's mostly behind a fender, so that's the good news. But I don't know if you can see, but there's a lot of pitting in this metal. There's some dents. It was probably, maybe it had some damage, but I'm gonna have to see if I can get some structure back in this, because that's part of the problem. All right, here's what I came up with. I got this pushed out much closer to where it'll be when I guide and block. It's still shallow. And I made this piece. I'm gonna put in here, gonna plug weld it, and that'll give me something to create a little bit of stiffness in that curve. And then when I go back and patch this back together, I can pull this tab up, and that'll give it plenty of strength. So that'll tie it all back together. Now, plug welding this is gonna be interesting because that metal behind it is not in good shape. But the nice thing about a plug weld is you're building it up on the surface. So that should help tie it all back together. Oh yeah, that's a lot stronger than it was. So now, as I start building this back, that'll give it a little bit of a skeleton to live on. So, I guess I gotta go get some sheet metal and start making some funny looking pieces. All right, that is a wrap for today. Excuse the booger welds on the bottom. They'll grind out. Might have to do a little cleanup there. Cut all the screws out. Welded that panel back together. It's a lot cleaner now than it was. The welds are going to be recessed a hair, so I won't be having to grind all the structure out of them. Then we'll bury it in body filler. And look at this. So much stronger. Doesn't move nearly as bad as it did. And it'll be wash, rinse, repeat on the other side. All right. Realized I never followed up on this, but there is the finished product. It's not great, not perfect, but it isn't nearly as dived in as it was. A piece of a straight edge here, you can see it's a whole lot tighter now. So a little bit of body filler, mud work, she'll be good. I can't do the mud work until I get all this truck bed liner or whatever it is cleaned off. I did the other side, found not one but 2 half-inch wrenches in the fenders. So I guess if you ever worked on this truck, let me know. I have your wrench. No 10 millimeters though. So if you're missing a 10 millimeter, I'm not your guy. And I went ahead and filled a couple of the holes in the dash, filled the radio plate. This is just in behind. I'll just put a layer of mud on that little Bondo, clean that right up. There's no point in worrying about lapping sheet metal in here. It's not going to ever rust. There's no moisture. So yeah, as always, thanks for watching, and that should conclude part 1. Stay tuned for part 2, where I cram all of that into a 60-plus-year-old truck.